Good morning, Bitcoiners. I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Who could complain on a day like today? Not me. No way. Things are going great. Let me make sure all the chat is happening in Rumble. Make sure we're live the way we intended. Make sure everything's going great. I'm not sure if we're live yet on YouTube. I'll wait for the chat. Bitcoin on Rumble for the chat on Rumble. We also do the Roxham chat is another one where you can chat and I'll see it. Here we go. There we go. Great. People in the house. Amazing. JJ Fox says, Lieutenant Winner's character is a lesson in leadership. Must-watch movie and character. Many of the characters are a lesson in life. Winters. Okay, Lieutenant Winters' character. I'll check it out. Have fun staying poor says, anyone hear about this James Tallarico guy running for Senate in Texas? Of course, we cover him closely. We love it. It'll be in the notes today. Hard to miss. Good morning, folks. Indeed. Smash the like button. We love it. Already did. Have fun staying poor. Not down with the technocrat transhumanists. No, we're not. We're not down with them. We're not down with them. Chatelet. Oops, I jumped ahead accidentally. How did I get so far down? Good morning, Great Awakeners. Always a pleasure to spend my morning with all of you. Stay frosty. Good morning, Count and Crew. Love today's image. Back to basics. You got it. I used a Norman Rockwell style for that too. I felt it was appropriate. Listen to Balaji on McCormick, and man, didn't realize he was so intense. Yeah, Balaji is a very intense guy. Good morning, racist early birds. We love the racist early birds. Top of the morning, folks. Chef Zero says, for of this you can be sure, no immoral, impure, or greedy person. Such a man as an idolater has any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and of God, indeed. Chatelet, barely 45. Love life, Bampians. Interesting times we share. They sure are. Charlosky said, I started that one too. Balaji has gotten less and less credible to me the more I listened to him. When he referred to Carney as very smart, I had to shut it off. Yeah, he does that sometimes. Good morning, Nolan and Great Awakening crew from a foggy Chicagoland. JJ Fox, what if you won? Never put yourself in a position where you can take from these men, indeed. Context, title of our show, movie, line, if you watch the movie, you love Lieutenant. Okay, now I get it. Yeah, now I get it. That's the Band of Brothers framework on Lieutenant Winters. Pardon me for missing that. Lieutenant Winters is a lesson in leadership, must-watch movie and character. Indeed. Not down with the technocrat, transhumanists. No. What's up with McGinnis guy? Bro snitched on the IDF before and now ruining the golden age vibes. I guess he's tired of winning. Loser. Who's McGinnis again? Are you talking about the guy crying on the internet all the time? Who Lieutenant Colonel, whatever his name is? I don't think it's McGinnis, but maybe I'm wrong. Love the shirt. Best intro in the game. We love the count, says Opportunity. Oh my, it's a cypherpunk capitalist, indeed. This was some swag from Satoshi Roundtable. This is Bruce Fenton's swag from his business. So we love the show. We love the t-shirt. We love the event. We love the Satoshi Roundtable. There you go. Good morning, Bitcoin fam. Indeed, 9 a.m. came quickly today, but I'm up for another day of winning. Well, I hope you're enjoying the early moments, spring coming to North America. I'm starting to get jealous of the weather, indeed. Bitcoin is money, says I'm Double B. We agree with you, I'm Double B. It sure is money, and we're going to be talking all about that. But first, we got to say hi to the NPCs. They're drowning in it again today. They're drowning in it. We're going to see what's going on with their lives. It's not good. None of it's good. Let's share some screen. Oh, first, let's acknowledge that's a sunrise. We love the sun. It's working. And guess what? Bitcoin is also running 73,000 US trash tokens to get a Bitcoin as of today. Pretty good deal still. Let's have a coffee, talk about what's new. I got one kite up today. I had no kite. It was my first night of peace for a long time. Now, I don't hear it in the house. It's when I'm outside, but I was outside yesterday in the yard last night, enjoying a beautiful and quiet evening, just the rustling of the leaves, no all night. That's great. I don't know what happened, though. Somehow this morning, some kid must have put one up before he went to school or something, because I got one blowing up there. It's not so bad. But that night of peace was great. The wind died down, no kites possible, so we'll see. So far, so good, though. And I see the whole studio that I'm in here today must have been a software update or something, but it's quite changed. There's new features and stuff, so buttons are a little in different spots for me today, but I'll be fine. It's more or less the same thing, just some configurations got moved around, and clearly the studio software I used shipped an update. So if I have any problems today, it's their fault, not mine. All right, now let's find out what is going on with the lives of our charges, our NPCs. We all have them in our life. What are they talking about today? CNBC says the U.S. insists the Iran conflict won't be a forever war. The experts beg to differ. The U.S. insists that the military operation in Iran should only last 4 to 5 weeks and won't be another forever war of the type seen in Afghanistan and Iraq. Analysts say the U.S. could easily get bogged down in Operation Epic Fury if the Iranian regime proves more entrenched and robust to attack. So, guys, according to the experts, if they're more powerful in Iran, this could go on. If we're wrong about how weak the Iranians are, this goes on forever. Trump will be wary of Americans' largely negative public opinion of the war. However, that is true. We get this from Mother Jones. These are always classic. When we come across a Mother Jones one, we're always excited. Here's what we got on this one. Trump's actions threaten the integrity of our national parks, critics say. The integrity. Our national parks are not going to have any more integrity. They're going to lose their integrity. The park had all this integrity. You were like, oh my God, if I lose my wallet, the park won't steal it. Oh my God, they always do what's right. And now the parks aren't going to be able to do what's right anymore. They're going to lose their integrity. Big cuts and sweeping changes have destabilized the Park Service and its core missions. It's destabilized. Trump is a regime destabilizer. He's destabilizing the national parks regime. Can you believe it? We get this in renewable energy. UK must double down on renewables as wars drive up energy costs, experts say. Fossil fuel price surge after U.S.-Israeli attacks on Iran prompts calls to end dependence on volatile energy sources. It's volatile. Oil and gas is volatile. But wait a minute. There's more. We got this from Energy Mix. Climate change is slowing the wind. Guys, the wind is slowing down. But I thought the UK had to get more wind because it wasn't volatile. But apparently it is volatile. Oh no, what do we do? The wind, it's changing. The winds of change. Oh no. And this is great too. We get another one. Trump has launched an unprecedented assault on the environment. Where's the pushback? Trump is assaulting the environment. And as we heard from Mother Jones as well, he's threatening the integrity of the park regime, threatening, unprecedented, assaulting the environment. So much assault and destruction of the environment. Unprecedented. It's unprecedented, I tell you. We get this warning now from Hollywood. We get Jamie Lee Curtis out there on the Warner Brothers Paramount deal. And she now says, are we now going to be fed constant content based on what businessmen's political and creative vision is? Oh my God, guys, we might get, if Jamie Lee Curtis is right, brace yourself, we might get politics in Hollywood. No. Hollywood was doing so great without the politics. Now there's going to be politics. There might be politics in Hollywood. Say it ain't so. We can't have politics in Hollywood. Jamie Lee Curtis, save us. It's like Michael Myers coming. He's going to stab us all. We're going to have politics in media. No, Jamie Lee Curtis, that would be terrible. That would be the worst. Now I get this from the Daily Mail. The Daily Mail: politician admits romping with a 13-year-old boy in dirty, hidden car park toilet. What's the word that starts with R that you would put here when you talk about sex with a 13-year-old? Is it really romping? Is a 13-year-old capable of romping, according to the Daily Mail? I think there's another word. Also starts with R. It also starts with R, and it has 4 letters. It's not romp. That's not the word. It's not funny. Just the word selection here. A little, I don't know about how many 13-year-olds want to romp with this guy. There's another word. There is another word. If I was doing a crossword puzzle right now, it wouldn't be romp that I chose when it came to a 13-year-old boy. But that's what we got. We got this one now from Daily Mail. The first non-binary person, Stone Age woman, was buried like a man 7,000 years ago, suggesting they had complex identity. Look, can't you see that's a trans? That's trans. It's a non-binary person right there. Obviously, you idiot, you bigot. Can't you see? God, don't be like that. Very obviously a woman, non-binary. Can't you tell? We could see from the skeleton, full-on non-binary. Come on, guys. Very obviously. All right, that is up. That is our NPC news for the day. Let's see what folks are saying in the chat. Citadel Daniel, my favorite shirt is the Toronto Baseball Club. I'm not sure I brought that with me in my bag this time. Let's see if it's there. I'm not sure if it's there. Wow. Your kite irritation is like my mosquito irritation when I go outside. Annoying. No, I kill all. I can't wait for the laser beam satellite precision warfare to come against the mosquitoes. I'm the same as the I'm the same with flies. I'm the same with anything. I just, no bugs in the house ever. They all get wiped out. I got the electric rackets and I just go crazy on them. And but I'm the same. Can't stand mosquitoes. Just can't stand them. I want them annihilated, entirely annihilated. Just learned all national parks ban base jumping. Yeah, they sure did. McGinnis, the Marine that got beat up by the senator for yelling, "No one wants to die for Israel." That was brutal. McGinnis. Okay, got it. Yeah, McGinnis. What are we saying about McGinnis again? I missed it. What's up with McGinnis guy, bro? Snitched on the IDF and now running the Golden Age vibes, ruining the Golden Age vibes. I guess he got tired of winning. Okay, got it. Yeah. I didn't watch the video. I can't watch physical injuries, by the way. I had a terrible accident when I was a teenager. I could slam dunk a basketball when I was 16, and I got fouled in the air going up to dunk once. I could barely dunk. I could just, women's balls, I could dunk easily. Volleyball, I could dunk easily. Sometimes with the real basketball, I could dunk. At that time, I ended up, getting better at it a little bit later. But when I was 16, I could just get over the line and dunk a ball. Not a power dunk, but I could, tip it in there with my hand. And I got fouled in the air, and I landed straight-legged, and my kneecap popped out and stuck on the backside of my leg. And so all these like crooked body part injuries and all that stuff, I can't handle it. I can't. I'm physically incapable of watching it. So if ever there's turn away type of things, and people say turn away if you don't want to see this for a sports highlight or something, I'm physically incapable of not turning away. I actually flinch and I actually do move away. I have some kind of PTSD from it all, I guess, because it was very painful. And I don't release the lasers. Yeah, I just can't. I just can't handle it. So I can't watch like someone breaking someone's arm. Like I have a lot of trouble. I respect the MMA stuff. I like watching the fights and I like watching boxing and all that. But broken bones and submission holds, I turn away. I can't look at that stuff. It's just something about it. Just can't handle it. So there you go. All right. That is our non binary content. Let's move on. I've got some details. I think we're just going to keep starting now that there is this hot conflict war. I'll just keep going with what I'm seeing. You know, a lot of fake stuff out there. This guy's not so bad. He's exaggerating some of the stuff. No limit. And he says Iran conflict overnight developments just dropped. There is no longer just an air war. Read every line. Thousands of Kurdish fighters have reportedly launched a ground offensive into western Iran from Iraq. We'll see how far they go. I don't think the Kurdish fighters are trying to get all the way to Tehran. And much to be seen about whether or not a Kurdish state is the right solution in the area, because it ends up changing, I think, considerable amount of borders, in particular with Iraq. So I'm not really sure what's going to happen with the Kurdistan situation. But ethnic sovereignty, if I had to predict, I think it would go that way. But I think that does create some kind of civil war impetus in both Iraq and Iran going forward. You don't want three wars breaking out. So I'm not sure what the answer is with the Kurdish thing. I do know a lot of Kurds. For some reason, there was a Kurdish, what we call in Quebec a casse-croûte, which is a break bread, otherwise known as a hot dog stand that serves the famous fare of Quebec, poutine and hot dogs and hamburgers and that kind of stuff. Really great little diners, and one of them was owned by a Kurdish family near where I lived 20 years ago. During the first Iraq war, I guess they were refugees from that conflict. And so they were new to Montreal at the time. And I used to hang out there all the time because it was near my wife's apartment. And we weren't married yet, but when we were dating in those days. So I was up there kind of all the time, and I really liked their casse-croûte. It was great. So I used to they had a map of Kurdistan on the wall, and I didn't know what country it was. I was like, what's that? And I ended up actually having dinner a couple of years later with the president of Iraq, who was Kurdish, who was a who was a Kurd, and big fat fella. He got kicked out later. He was appointed president of Iraq by the Americans, and this would have been '08 during the war. And he made a state visit to South Korea. And I've told you this story a few times. I was doing some immigration work for some Iraqi folks that had moved to South Korea, and I was actually friends with a lot of the original refugee community that coalesced around the foreigner neighborhood of Seoul, and met a lot of strange characters there. It's full Mos Eisley spaceport stuff, spies and arms dealers and all kinds of wild stuff over that time. But anyway, that's what I understand about the Kurdish situation. Again, if they go anywhere, I think it is just to make sure that their own citizens, that are their own ethnic group that is in Kurdistan, is safe and without any trouble. So um, that's news. Hold on, I got to tell my wife one thing because my butcher is coming and she just got home and I don't have the cash and she's got to get it. So let me just tell her what's up. She's got to get it so I can get my beef delivery. So just hold on a second. I'll see if I can play an ad. Can you guys play an ad in the? I'll see if they can play an ad here. Oh no, never mind. I'm not going to need it. CC, Sorry about that, everybody. Okay, let me see where I was. CNN reports the CIA is working with Kurdish groups to spark an armed uprising inside Iran. Trump spoke directly with Kurdish leaders. The White House denied agreeing to any specific plan, but Hexeth said other parts of the U.S. government may be involved, referring to the CIA. Iran's intelligence ministry responded, saying it struck Kurdish separatist positions along the western border. The IRGC claims to have hit Kurdish bases inside Iraq. So again, I can see why they're getting mobilized, but I don't think they're going to be aggressively moving into Persian territory or Iranian ethnic territory. That's just what I think. His words: "We are accelerating, not decelerating. More and larger waves are coming. We're just getting started." The Senate voted down the War Powers Resolution. Rand Paul was the only Republican to vote yes. Fetterman was the only Democrat to vote no. The war continues with no congressional check. House votes Thursday. Iran has now threatened to strike Israel's nuclear reactor. Hexeth confirmed the U.S. killed the leader of the Iranian unit that plotted to assassinate Trump. He was hunted down and killed. The U.S. has now sunk 20 Iranian vessels, including the Iris Dina, an Iranian submarine, and the drone helicopter carrier Shahid Baghi. Iraq suffered a total blackout after Iranian strikes hit infrastructure across the country. Israel's Home Front Command is relaxing shelter guidelines for the first time since the war began, starting Thursday noon. A sign, 1 second. Hey, thanks for your patience, guys. We need. Oh, unmute. Yeah, I've unmuted. I got to get the beef. We need the beef, the healthy beef. We have a great. He actually was late 2 weeks ago for my last delivery because one of his cows was giving birth, and so he actually gave me a picture of the brand newborn calf lying in the pasture, still getting cleaned by its mother, and saying, "I'm late. I had something emergency to deal with." So just to let you know what a great butcher. It's one of the reasons why I love Barbados, by the way, compared to a lot of other islands. It's the only one left that I know, and I've visited all of them, that still has full-on indigenous agricultural stuff where we don't have to really import the big things. I mean, you can get imported beef and imported whatever. You can get all of that. But every couple of miles on the shoreline here, there's a fishing stand with really good facilities around it, clean stuff, and then real fish markets, and then pasture eggs everywhere, and a few farms where you can get this kind of stuff. I get raw milk here, also not common on other islands. Usually you got to take the UHT milk, that disgusting powder that is added, and that is from powder, I guess you could say, and water getting mixed. Just the stuff that you can just leave on the shelf and sell, and it's good for months and stinks the minute you open it. So we don't have anything like that here. So good stuff. So where was I? The rate of ballistic missiles, right, has significantly declined since day one. Analysts say their stockpiles are depleted and they're rationing for a longer war. Indeed, here, Hexeth on China and Russia, they are not really a factor. Our problem is Iran's nuclear ambitions. Some morbid and stuff here. We don't know. It's not good. We don't like seeing civilians and stuff like that. Oil prices up a little bit, up 36% to date on the year, but still way below 100 U.S. trash tokens. The Pentagon is preparing a supplemental funding request for Congress, of course, got to print ground offensive, gravity bombs, Kurdish insurgency, nuclear threats, and they say they're just getting started. Full-scale war looks like it's actually ramping down. I wouldn't take this kind of hype from No Limits. In many ways, things are getting a lot simpler. The decentralized nature of the war continues to be a reality, however. They're not functioning in a chain of command in Iran, and that's probably the most dangerous part now. Here, report from Iran, Brigadier General, some kind of word I can't read because there's no U in it. The Speaker of the Parliament and a former member of the Revolutionary Guard is now fully in charge of the war. There is significant chaos in the chain of command among Iran's military forces. Many missile and drone launching sites have lost contact with the main command and are operating on autopilot, as is known in Iran. Atash B. Ekhtiyar, something like that. So that's been my worry for a while. We did have a major physical development in the war yesterday, something that hasn't happened in an awful long time, and that was the sinking of a ship using a torpedo from a submarine. Here, John T. Williams reminds us the U.S. sunk an Iranian ship using a Mark 82 torpedo, the first such use of a submarine-launched torpedo by the U.S. to sink a ship since World War II. So there's that ship right there going down. Here's what the warship looked like as it left. These were the logistics of what happened. It was just in India a few days ago during the Milan Olympics. That's why we've got this here. So gonzo, indeed, the destruction of this boat here. A little bit about those torpedoes. Christopher Whipper here underlining this is what our Mk-48 torpedoes do. The Mk-48 torpedo sinks ships primarily by detonating a 650-pound high explosive warhead directly underneath the keel rather than hitting the side. This creates a massive gas bubble that lifts the ship, breaks its back, and causes catastrophic structural failure. The resulting damage floods the vessel, causing the ship to sink rapidly. So that looks like it's what happened yesterday with the Iranian ship, bombed right underneath it. But that isn't the only development. Here is a other development that happened from the Iranians, and this is in the water in the Strait of Hormuz. It looks like Iran just used an unmanned surface vehicle for the first time in this war. Footage shows an unmanned boat hitting an oil tanker off Kuwait's coast. Did not sink the boat, but it caused some issues. It looks like there is an oil spill right now, and we'll see if people can clean it up, but it is a problem. Meanwhile, in Iran, and this is what makes me think that the war will be over sooner rather than later, where you will get some form of people uprising, I guess, what Trump is coaxing. Iran's energy minister confirms U.S.-Israeli strikes damaged water and electricity facilities, urging citizens to conserve resources. Iran already faces a severe water crisis. The CIA considers water a strategic commodity. One major desalination plant hit could force evacuations within days. That's always one of the things I dislike when I'm in the Middle East, is that I look around and I say, how quick could this place become completely unlivable? And it's always the desalination and the water situation that has me worried. And here, in this case, that's exactly what's going on. And I expect one of the, I guess, good news signs of this is that indeed, if there is an uprising in Iran because of the water and electricity trouble, then you're actually going to have a pretty interesting, let's call it, reconciliation between America and the Iranian people. Because, of course, who's going to save these people? It's going to be the American infrastructure and the coalition that's around. So I can easily see Saudi and Emiratis and Qataris and Kuwaitis coming in with provisions immediately if there is an uprising to help the people and then help stock them with supplies. So doesn't look like a big deal right now, but I do believe this story here is going to play things out much quicker. Now, again, more and more people are seeing the Chinese angle on this, as I said yesterday, but it's becoming more and more obvious. You heard that here first, of course. I was probably the first person to bring it up. The New York Times here, China's leaders set the economy's growth target to below 5%. That was yesterday. Phil Labonte says, I'm telling you, Iran is more about China than about Israel. I think that's correct. Beth Jazo. So it's not just me at this point saying it. Chamath talking about the Chinese economy here. Beth Jazo saying, why are we making moves on Venezuela and Iran? This is why. And it's about Chinese growth, of course, the lowest China growth in 30 years. Elon Musk says what we all know, the stage is being set for what is to come. So that's pretty powerful signal there coming from the richest man in the world. China Uncensored says much the same thing. Things are about to get very interesting. China, just like you heard the Iranians talk about rationing of electricity and water, the Chinese are also talking about rationing the oil they've got and the diesel they've got. And we see here that it's another big development, of course. We have Batya. Whoops, what just happened? Yeah, and we've got, whoops, I don't know why that went. China Uncensored says, continues, if you're suffering from Trump derangement syndrome or Jewish derangement syndrome, you aren't going to be able to understand what's happening right now. Indeed, Batya Ungar Sargon says, in 2021, Xi told senior party officials that the East is rising and the West is declining, that America was the biggest source of chaos in the present day world. And he was true. It was right about all of that. That was the Joe Biden years. Of course, America just had a stolen election, which I'm sure Xi understood. The biggest source of chaos in the present day world, and that China was entering a period of strategic opportunity. They did. Iran was central to that thesis. Beijing needed a defiant Iran to keep Washington pinned down in the Gulf, to sustain a sanctions-proof energy corridor, and above all, to stand as living evidence that American power had hard limits. The entire architecture of CCP's dogma of inevitability rested on Iran's ability to endure, and epic fury removed the foundation in a single afternoon. And that looks like what is happening. Just like we saw here, Z is scrambling. The word is not used lightly for a leader who has built his public image on strategic composure and long horizon thinking. The current moment is acutely dangerous, not because China faces direct military threat, but because every available response to the crisis in the Persian Gulf leads Beijing into a trap of its own contradictions. And that's why you're seeing all of this news and all of the different changes around there. Indeed, the idea of the purge going on in the military. Here's Ansel Linder with a really great analysis. Mohammed El Arian, of course, also sees that China's economic hurdles are increasing. Having already lost access to discounted Venezuelan oil, Beijing is now seeing a second source of cost-effective energy, Iran, falter. This is happening as the 2025 strategy of propping up growth through aggressive global export expansion. And Cylinder says, glad the mainstream economics are coming around to this finally. The U.S. hand is way better than most thought. Xi is purging all his generals while the U.S. is showing off advanced military ops and expeditionary prowess. That's the word I was looking for. Now, FF 10 to 20 years. Think about the toll demographics will take. The U.S. is the only game in town, and that's what I'm seeing as well. Many people, another one here, Jesse Waters, talking about it yesterday on his show. Jesse Waters makes a very interesting point about the Strait of Hormuz and China. No one is more nervous than China. And here you've got a pretty good breakdown by Sightbringer. China is trapped. Their entire machine runs on seaborne energy and seaborne trade, routed through a handful of choke points they do not control. Hey, wouldn't it be great if all these boats went to nuclear anyway? That'd be great. Let's do it, China. That dependency is a permanent strategic wound. The U.S. does not need to invade China to break China. The U.S. only needs to make shipping unreliable. Insurance spikes, convoys slow, ports back up, freight reprices, factories miss inputs, exports fracture, the machine starts coughing. The live demo A few drones, a few hits, a few threats, and traffic collapses. No legal closure required. The market closes it for you. Now scale that concept to Malacca, the South China Sea, and the broader Indo-Pacific. That is why China is nervous. The war exposes the governing physics of the system. The governing physics are energy corridors decide outcomes. Speeches decorate outcomes. China's playbook is obvious. Buy time, build redundancy, stockpile, pipeline, port network, navy, air defenses, domestic substitution, strategic reserves, financial buffers. All of it exits for one reason. They cannot fight a great power war while depending on the ocean lanes that great power can squeeze. Taiwan sits inside this constraint. If China moves before they have redundancy, they risk self-strangulation. If they wait forever, the window closes and the balance tilts away. So they live in a narrowing corridor. They're compressing timelines because the structure is compressing them. My clean read, the Strait of Hormuz shock is a strategic message to China, even if no one says it out loud. It tells Beijing the same thing war planners already know. Your economy is a ship. The sea is not yours. What happens next? China accelerates redundancy and internal resilience. China pushes harder for alternative supply routes and more domestic energy security. China becomes more risk aware, more brittle under energy shocks, more aggressive about securing buffers. China also quietly leans toward stabilizing Gulf flows because a Gulf energy shock hurts them more than most. So the truth, the U.S. does not have to blockade China tomorrow to hold leverage today. The leverage already exists because the map exists. China's problem is not ideology, it is geography. And of course, you already hear now that the Chinese are going to be working with the Americans to make sure that energy comes through. Not sure if that's true. It's more of a rumor today. But of course, I do think it'll play out. Now, indeed, there's all these stories around about stockpiling and indeed The Economist, and that's pretty much all that's left out there is the British tabloids like The Economist and the Daily Telegraph running all of these campaigns, the chaos campaigns. Wall Street Journal here, Jonathan Cheng talking about The Economist, the nightmare energy scenario just becoming a reality. Although China, Japan, and South Korea have stockpiled enough oil the last few months, they rely heavily on Middle Eastern imports. Gulf crude accounts for a third of China's total demand. Chinese crude futures tripled the 9% daily limit, indeed. You get this great thing, too, from the Telegraph. Iran's plan to turn this stretch of water into a death trap for Trump. It's a death trap, they say. Tehran has laid a trap for Donald Trump in the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important shipping routes, and the president risks sailing right into it. Notice, British, we got more British. The Daily Mail, stranded Americans turn on Trump after being offered zero help in the Middle East, while MAGA stars are whisked home on a jet. Of course, fake. Alex Brucewitz. This is such a crock of shit coming from the Daily Mail. The Trump administration has brought home thousands and thousands of Americans already. I wasn't one of them. I whisked myself home on my own dime and brought seven other Americans, most of whom I didn't even know, along with me. And that's what the Daily Mail is saying here. You get more information on this as well. Yesterday, that the White House actually offered ride homes for everyone. So the White House, any American who wishes to leave, they had a Rubio film this address here about leaving. Joseph A. Conrad, who was the first person to point out that insurance was the whole game here, says the following: "This is epic and it's not getting reported enough. I worked in oil and gas. I've seen pirates, been harassed by hostile warships, witnessed epic natural disasters. 3 times I was in nations so dangerous the embassy evacuated non-essential personnel. For decades, the primary response of the U.S. Embassy was, 'What do you want us to do about it?' This wasn't always the case. As ship captains, we are still taught the vast power of the state that the State Department holds, not just their own, but the authority to deputize ship captains and airline pilots to serve as mini embassies abroad. I had enormous legal power as a ship captain to help, but never used it because my company knew they'd get zero backing from the state. This is what America did until our embassies got too busy funding NGOs to bother helping American citizens. I can't tell you how excited I am to finally have an embassy you can actually call for help." So this is just a small sign of the types of changes. But again, remember the staging we've been talking about for a long time here on the show, that the attack on the NGOs first was important, and the attack on US aid first was important because that was the narrative supply chain that allowed for all this mischief to happen. And by getting rid of those supply chains, you have the real opportunity now, I think anyway, you have the real opportunity to reset the agenda, because all of the propaganda, of course, was the problem all the time. And now the propaganda's capacity is breaking, which is a great bit of news for everyone. And indeed, when you take stock of what's going on here and what's left, it is this propaganda, right? Like A.G. Hamilton 29 says here, the Islamic Republic spent decades preparing for this war, and they are getting routed in every way imaginable. They have no air defenses left. Their navy is underwater. Their air force is non-existent. Their terror proxies are hiding. They are impotently shooting an increasingly diminishing stockpile of missiles in random directions. The only place where they have had any success is in an alternate reality created by anti-West propagandists on social media. According to some viral posts on X, Russian media, and some paid propagandists, the regime has destroyed every base and winning handily. But none of that translates into the real world. In the real world, regime leaders are being eliminated as fast as they can get promoted. Their only out is unconditional surrender. IRGC commanders should stop and recognize this if they want to be alive. And indeed, this debate that we're having now, because it is only the propagandists, it is international law. We're still in the world of international law. What is Trump's doing is not in tune with international law. And it's true, it's only these propagandists. And you can really, again, one of the important things is when you understand this in terms of the fiat power structures, and like we've said for a long time, propaganda is essential in fiat currencies because government debts and government capacity is exactly what needs to be believed for the money to have value, which means the nodes in the network are propaganda, which has been what this show has been about from day one. It's the top-down nature of money to propaganda to the institutions to the international legal system, which is completely fake. We're moving out of that into a world of actual kinetic power and power projection, not these fake institutions that were the gap between the people and the money. They sat in the middle and were the buffer between any accountability, any dialogue, any interactions. Hans Monkey here reiterating this, saying, for a long time, there has been a recurring debate about whether international law truly exists, and even more fundamentally, whether law itself is as solid as people assume. The uncomfortable conclusion is that in many circumstances, there is no law in the pure sense, only power. In openly despotic systems, this is obvious. What surprised many people during the COVID period was how quickly the same dynamic appeared in countries that pride themselves on the rule of law. It took very little to destabilize the system. Almost overnight, people were locked in their homes, businesses were shuttered, and churches were closed, yet liquor stores and big box retailers stayed open. Vaccination mandates followed. None of this arose from the deliberate machinery that is supposed to define law. It flowed from whoever happened to hold authority at that moment, and many officials quickly discovered that they enjoyed exercising it. The situation is even starker in the realm that calls itself international law, where the system is largely a political power contest dressed up in legal language. Consider the advisory opinion urging Britain to hand the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, delivered under the leadership of a Chinese judge. That itself reduced the entire spectacle to a farce. But even when such bodies are not openly compromised, the rulings often account to little more than political preferences written in legal prose. And when a decision happens to be technically sound, there is no mechanism to enforce it. The ruling that China has no legal claim to vast swaths of the South China Sea, including shoals belonging to the Philippines, illustrates the point perfectly. The decision exists on paper while the occupation continues in reality. All of this underscores a broader truth. International order ultimately rests on power, not on courts or advisory opinions, which is why the character of the dominant power matters enormously. Of course, there have been plenty of mistakes and misadventures, but the international order anchored by American power is vastly preferable to one run by despotic regimes. And international law is the airplanes, it's all these things, just like we saw here, right? In all seriousness, this represents a significant shift in American foreign policy. The big frustrations for war vets, enemy safe haven in Iran, enemy safe haven in Pakistan, Vietnam, enemy safe haven in Cambodia. International waters argument aside, it appears we can finally try to finish fights without an arm and a leg tied behind our backs, restricted by geography. This is a bigger deal than most realize and will likely upset the globalist crowd. Just a second. So here we see that the international, basically bigger deal than most realize, and an important factor here. And again, people picking up on the China connection to this international water scam that's been going on, and a lot of people picking up on this yesterday, saying, "Why don't you start turning all these boats on the Chinese fishing trawlers that are out there?" Raw egg nationalists saying, "I really want the Trump admin to start talking about this the next time the conversation turns to climate change. Trump or Vance or a member of his cabinet should ask why we aren't focusing on the real environmental problems. There won't be any fish in the sea at this rate." Many people picking up on this, Hans Monkey as well. China absolutely decimating every corner of the world's oceans is without question the biggest environmental catastrophe happening right now. Is an actual ecological disaster. Yet the Save the Planet grifters never talk about it while forcing us to use paper straws. And here another one, vocal distance. The reason climate change activists and environmentalists don't focus on China is because China already has communism. I like that understanding, right? Hans Monkey continues, the whole Chagos debacle is made even worse by the fact that the so-called international court that advised Britain to hand over the islands was headed by Chinese nationalist Zhu Hongqin. Even if we leave aside the fact that Mauritius is a Chinese vassal, there is no conceivable reason to let countries with no legal tradition, no culture of law, and most importantly, no rule of law appoint judges to international courts, let alone a chief judge. No one with even two functioning brain cells could take such courts seriously. And the international law thing is going hilariously. That's why you see all of these people talk about it. Most of the press corps is not allowed in the Pentagon, where decisions about the war in Iran are being made. The lack of information makes it harder for journalists to do their jobs, for the American public to understand what's happening. Oh no, the journalists can't do their jobs. Are you kidding me? Why do you think these operations are going so well? It's not just they locked out the mainstream media, they also locked out many think tanks, self proclaimed experts, and allies. They are letting war fighters cook. And in the comments section, we have someone ask, curious why you're so pro Trump, given that he started yet another unconstitutional war. This is from a Pioneering Freedom. Well, it's because it's all the legal system is bullshit. It's a complete scam. Unconstitutional. You think you live in a republic? You think you have a republic pioneering freedom? No, you live in power projection. There is no such thing as a republic. The republic is long gone. We haven't had civilian control of shit in America since at least 63, probably before. So the idea that you are constrained by constitutionality, no, it's an excuse. People have been saying that there's a constitution and a republic in order to oppress you. What you're seeing here is a full-fledged attack on these international institutions like the NGOs, like the media, and Trump has been locked into a war that I completely align with. So it's not about being pro-Trump necessarily. It's about getting rid of the top-down structures that are there, because you don't live in a constitutional republic, my friend. And if you think you do, I got a bridge in London I can sell you, and why don't you get some more fiat currency, because that's what you're talking about. It's fake. It's as fake as the money. And so you've got to get your mind off of it. It's as fake as this. Look at Mark Carney, right? He's saying, once you start breaking the rules, he's out there, the Prime Minister of Canada. Once you start breaking the rules, it's learned behavior, he says. And the fact that we're having these conflicts without even the thought of recourse to the United Nations is deeply troubling. Well, Mark Carney does the same, right? He declared Palestine a state, right? There's no UN that did that. He talks about international rule of law when he unilaterally announced that you could carve off a piece of Israel and give it to Hamas. You can't do that, right? He's out there also telling Alberta they can't do this, what they want to do, and separate from Canada. You don't live in a democracy. You haven't in a long time. There is no structures that are going to help you. Trump was indicted 4 times by sludge people, absolute disgusting sludge people. That's why I started supporting Trump again, because they went after him because he clearly posed a threat to those systems. Indeed, we're going into the world of power projection right now, and actual power, not these fake, is it constitutional, international law? Oh my God, what do the NGOs think, right? The world is changing so quickly. The EU is an example of this. And even yesterday, we're seeing what happened with this power projection. The defense minister of Spain apologized to the American ambassador after Trump embargo's threats, saying, "I'm with Trump. The government is a joke." Dirty Sanchez finally has pulled down his pants and sent a frigate this morning to Cyprus. And look at how they're international law, constitutionality held up. They couldn't handle no exporting olive oil. And from Spain, don't threaten the olive oil and the wine. Oh, the wine. Oh no. And collapse, finished. You got your generals here, or your defense minister saying to the political organ, I'm with Trump. I'm actually with Trump, because we're now into a world of power projection, and we're up against a shadowy force that's been around for a long time. And we spoke about the insurance stuff just 2 days ago. We began talking about it yesterday. Of course, Trump followed that up with the American insurance system to take over Lloyd's, and we're starting to see that was everything, that the financial infrastructure that pretends to have democracy, that forces people like you to say, curious, why we're so curious. Are you still curious? Why pioneering freedom? Are you pioneering freedom to follow a fake constitution? Is that pioneering? It's not. It's just falling in line. And that's not what we're for here. We're for this entire change of systems. And the system itself, we can see, just ask Susan Kokinda about why it was such a big deal. But the true war has nothing to do with the kinetic things we're seeing. You need the power projection to be able to do that. But it's really about the financial flows, and it's really about the incentives and the way the system works.
Risk coverage for the Strait of Hormuz and adjacent waters. 1/3 of the world's oil flows through that strait. Without insurance, no tanker moves. Without tankers, the global economy starts to tremble. The Strait of Hormuz isn't just a shipping lane. It's the jugular of the global energy economy. And Lloyd's of London has been the gatekeeper for 3 centuries, deciding who gets coverage and who gets shut out. Now, don't take my word for it, take theirs. When King George V laid the foundation stone of the Lloyd's building back in 1925, he called it the embodiment of the highest qualities of British commerce. And he said that Lloyd's services, quote, all maritime peoples who are in peace and amity with the British Empire. In peace and amity with the British Empire. Did you catch that? In other words, you get coverage if the Crown approves of you, and suddenly Lloyd's is pulling insurance from a war zone. That doesn't look like risk management. That looks like a weapon. Okay, that Trump lowered the boom on Britain. He took direct aim at one of the oldest financial... Okay, that Trump lowered the boom...
There we go. So this infrastructure is everything. And it's a really important thing just to see what you're up against. It's why these insurance companies, by canceling the coverage, we're actually doing the escalation, right? Pinot Americano says, if I understand correctly, British insurers such as Lloyd's of London pulled their maritime insurance for ships traveling through the Strait of Hormuz, even though we are escorting those ships with our Navy. If true, British insurers were trying to escalate the economic fallout of military operations in Iran. Trump stepped in to provide alternative insurance to these ships, but this does not eliminate the possibility that Britain was trying to economically harm our country and others. And it's why I've been saying on this show for a long time that Britain is more my enemy than Iran or Russia or any of these places, China, all of them. And it's really about this unseen infrastructure that shows itself, like when it stole the 2020 election, like in COVID, like with the Joe Biden presidency, like with the Obama presidency. We see, like the financial crisis, like with Epstein, it's the infrastructure that rises above the surface for moments, and you can get a clear look at it in these instances. But luckily, the whole world is now turning into actual power, and that's what matters, the projection of power, and literally power, electricity. Electricity is now coming to the forefront for this reason. And it's why England finds itself in such a weak and pitiful position. You see, the UK electrical generation has fallen 25% from its peak in 2004. Could you imagine peaking your electricity in 2004 and all the things that have happened in the world in the past 22 years, and you're 25% down from 2004? Per capita electricity consumption is a third the level of the United States. I remember even seeing these. You had to like pay for electricity with a like a coin machine was in people's houses for taking showers. I remember seeing that in the UK. Like, put a dime in so you can have hot water. Like pathetic use of electricity, just so pathetic. And it's why it's a pathetic and stupid place. The UK has the most costly electricity in the world. Half the gas we consume comes from the Norwegian side of the North Sea basin. The residual imported LNG has 4x the carbon footprint of supplying our own. And most depressingly of all, the result is a deteriorating UK balance of payments, a weaker pound, and a bigger hit to the cost of living. And still, the useful idiots want to further constrain UK energy production through high taxes, banning new licenses, and gold-plating new energy infrastructure. Their luxury beliefs are behind the awful household disposable income growth over the recent years. And again, why it's all about power. You can even see that's why Russia is threatening Europe right now. Russia could halt gas supplies to Europe right now amid a spike in energy prices triggered by the Iran crisis. President Putin warned, linking the possible decision to the European Union wanting to ban purchases of Russian gas and liquefied natural gas. Now compare that with what we're getting in America and what Trump has put together, and think about what's better for you, and think about what revolution you're actually involved in here. You're actually involved, without you understanding it, in a energy revolution. The finance of energy is a big deal. Remember that World War I was about the finance of war itself. Those financial models don't really work anymore because the cost of violence has so shifted from World War I to now. Now you're in a war about the economics and financing of energy. And so Trump yesterday showed us that by getting all of the big tech firms to be their own energy companies now and their own energy producers, he's actually doing more here to win World War III than any of this Iranian stuff, than any of the stuff with the oil in Strait of Hormuz, although it's related because it's energy. David Sachs writing, today President Trump obtained a pledge from America's leading tech companies that new data centers would not increase electricity prices for residential consumers. These companies, including Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, OpenAI, signed the Ratepayer Protection Pledge, under which they agree to cover the costs of all new power generation required for their data centers, ensuring such costs are not passed on to American households. So the hundreds of billions to trillions of dollars these guys have raised, it's going to energy. It's going to American energy systems. We're going to completely change the grid. It's going to American colonialism. Greenland is going to be filled with these. This is a much better approach to affordability than Bernie Sanders' total ban on new data centers, which would halt the construction boom currently driving wage growth and job growth for blue-collar workers. In fact, the Ratepayer Protection Pledge will lower electricity rates, electricity prices when AI companies pay for grid upgrades and sell their excess power back to the grid. Since the beginning of his second term, President Trump has championed the idea of letting our leading AI companies become power companies, and now the idea is becoming a reality thanks to his leadership and the commitments of those strong American companies. The right approach to data centers is not to stop progress altogether, but rather to protect residential ratepayers from price increases while making it easier to stand up new power generation.
Very quickly, David, please.
Let me know if the audio is coming through correctly.
Very quickly, David, please.
Thank you, sir. As I think all of you know here, we have an AI boom going on. We also have a construction boom going on. Just the leading companies in the U.S. are investing $650 billion this year building out this infrastructure. That's a 2% tailwind to GDP, and that is leading to job increases for construction workers and huge wage increases for construction workers like the fellows we got right up here. So this is a very important boom to sustain, and thanks to your leadership, Mr. President, we're doing that, and we're protecting residential ratepayers, making sure that their electricity prices will not go up. That's the combination we need. And I just want to contrast it, if I may, with the approach of Democrats like Bernie Sanders. Their approach is just to ban. They just want to ban the data centers. So they want to stop the economic growth. They want to stop the wage increases for blue collars. They want to stop the construction. They want to just stop progress. That's not the answer. There's a much better answer. You have found it, sir. And I just want to vouch for the fact that in one of our very first meetings, you did say that you wanted to make our AI companies into energy companies. So that was true, and I remember thinking that's a really good idea. The president knows more about AI than I do. So this is thanks to your leadership we're here today, and I know this is something that you've been championing for a very long time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and Katie, thank you.
Yes, Mr. President.
So big changes, big changes. And, you know, that's why the world is turning into this power projection story and why you're seeing America win World War III. World War III is a financial, economic, and psychological war. I have said that consistently here from the very beginning. And that's why Trump is so effective in this war, because he's very good at persuading people or repelling people in order to polarize opinions and wedge different scenarios and frameworks across. Of course, his lack of political correctness gets things done very quickly. And also his ability to ignore all of these norms and protocols help, right? Yesterday, again, you're going into a world of kinetic power. You're going into a world of electricity. You're going into a world where doing is more important than saying or speaking. And yesterday, Trump sort of mixed a bit of both, where he spoke in ways that he does, and he started doing his funny insults again. Now, Keir Starmer is even better than not the days of Churchill. Now he's just a loser. Right, so he described him as a loser, and the Telegraph is commenting, Donald Trump calls Starmer a loser. Now, remember, I talk a lot about how in America, that's one of the worst insults we've got is loser, right? Most insults are a subconscious reflection of a society's deepest held fears. And it's why, for example, I use the Quebec language version or the French language version to explain this pretty accurately. In Quebec, a lot of the swear words are from the old religious order. They're kind of medieval swear words. They're still locked in time from entire generations ago, when Quebec was particularly run by the church. And so because it was this little kind of time capsule of medieval Europe that existed as a medieval country, as a medieval nation, I guess you could say, right up through the Industrial Revolution, it was still more or less medieval. And it's why we still have the walls around Quebec City. It's why the social structure of Quebec is the way it is. It was still medieval. And so in Quebec, in the French language in Quebec, the swear words are all about religion: tabernacle, chalice, wafer. That's literally like if you spill milk in Quebec, you say, tabernacle, chalice, wafer. So all Catholic icons. And so in France, however, if you spill milk, you'll start talking about being an inadequate lover, that you have to pay for sex. So you'll say brothel prostitute if you spill milk in France. And that just goes to show you the difference of some of these cultures. And, another great example would be South Korea, because it's Confucian. In South Korea, if you want to get a fight going, if you really want to insult someone, you call them a puppy. So that's a Confucian hierarchy. So you're subhuman and you're young. So you're extra low on the totem pole. In America, starting a fight, you can use all the British terms of bodily Victorian functions, shit, fuck. It doesn't really start a fight in America. Who cares? Loser, on the other hand, loser in America is pretty bad, and you don't want to be a loser in America. So Keir Starmer now getting called a loser by the president. We had other losers yesterday, just to show you how pervasive it is in America. Here, when you had Dan Crenshaw lose yesterday, Alex Stein chased him around Nashville, Tennessee.
Dan, I bet you didn't see that loss coming, Dan, did you see that loss coming? Crenshaw, you took the L. Hey, Crenshaw, you took the L. Did you see that coming? I know you only got one eye, Cyclops. You lost. Did you do a good job? Hey, Dan, great job on your election, brother. You're a loser. We got your ass, Dan. You're a loser. Great job, dude. Are you scared? Is that why you're walking away? Dan?
So all about loser. And again, just to show you the psychological strings being pulled in America, and that we're in the psychological war, which is why you'll always hear these things about it's a forever war and it's unsolvable problems. And, here again, back to the Nick Fuentes story. Here, SNS Anon saying the Nick Fuentes grift is literally just built on the not like other girls complex for socially stunted right-wingers. He flips his takes on Epstein, Israel, and Kamala just to make sure his group is completely isolated from the rest of the conservative internet. If they feel unique and misunderstood by everyone else, they will dump all their attention and loyalty onto him. Christian Hines here saying, this is the guy Nick Fuentes is telling you to vote for this November. I don't know about you, but white skin as a virus doesn't seem to very America first to me. So this comes from everyone laughing at this James Tallarico guy yesterday. Can't believe he stole it from Jasmine. And people are already picking up that he stole it from Jasmine, indeed. White skin, this is what Tallarico said, white skin gives me and every white American immunity from the virus. But we spread it wherever we go through our words. And this is 2 weeks before George Floyd. All right. This is not George Floyd yet. So he's front running George Floyd through our words, our actions, and our systems. We don't have to be showing symptoms like a white hood or a Confederate flag to be contagious. What do you think this guy's chances of getting elected are? Here's Wesley Yang saying, the maudlin sanctimony from this oleaginous cornpone boy preacher should be disqualifying and exposes a mind devoid of any capacity to seek or know reality beyond the pious copy-pasted sophistries of the lobbies. It is morally urgent to wreck his political ambitions. Indeed, this is what he said. If one girl loses a game, then this bill is worth it. Here he is with another one. Black Americans in a church, Mexican Americans in a store, Asian Americans in a spa. Radicalized white men are the greatest domestic terrorist threat in our country. Radicalized white men are the greatest. The guy everyone is calling a moderate Christian Democrat, indeed. And again, why it is so important that leadership and strength are at the forefront right now, and why in rebuilding you need these leaders, you need the vibe they set. And Zero HP Lovecraft here reiterating some of the unseen things Trump is doing. This story comes from Eyewitness News saying using headphones is no longer just considered proper etiquette. It's now a requirement on United Airlines. United says passengers who use speakers and refuse to wear headphones could be removed from flights and even face a lifetime ban. The airline says travelers who don't have headphones can request a free pair from flight attendants. Zero HP Lovecraft says, this would have never happened under Kamala. The president sets the vibe for the whole nation, no matter how much various women might stomp their feet about it. Say, thank you, Donald Trump, or you will turn into a coiled out panicking troon who cries about bombed Muslims. Come on. He's very good. And that's why he's out there saying just the simple thing, right? We have to be dominant. It's this kind of leadership. It's not just saying, I want to do some stuff with Bitcoin. It's this, right? Dominant. And you've got the Fed chair, and this is when Trump's true power and Bitcoin's, I think, bull market is going to be realized. when you finally see Kevin Warsh take the Fed chair in just about 2 months from now, and you have the actual return of the constitutional republic, because the constitutional republic, the one we're talking about, right? The one here on not for the Constitution, right? Bro, if not for the Constitution, I'm anti-government. But why is Trump being led to the nuts by the nuts to start a war? I'm anti-war. Who, in your opinion, do you think runs the world? I think the money systems run the world. I don't think it's the United States of America. I think Trump was barely president the first time around. This time he's president with a pretty good executive branch, but he does not control Congress. He doesn't control the Senate. He does, I think, finally control the military. I think we do finally have civilian control of the military in the United States. But what good is that necessarily if you have to deal with all the psychological and economic manipulation that's going on in the world? He's finally found a path that is the re-architecture of the financial system backed by a lot of these systems. And so I do think that what you have in this formula of energy abundance and eventually the subordination of the Federal Reserve to the Treasury is how you get your constitution and your republic back. And I do believe that if you can have that, you can actually have civilian control of the military once again. I don't think that's what we have right now. And by subordinating the Federal Reserve to the Treasury, you're going to have the pieces in play. And that's what this really is all about. And so it's, I think, important to see what America has actually become. And when you, I think that's the, 1 second. Sorry about that, guys. Weird thing with all of the deliveries going on. So there you go. The system, right? Who's running the world? I think it has been what we saw from the Epstein files, right? Them talking about Rothschilds, the banking system, everything that happened to America during World War I and World War II. And then later with Kennedy is what we're really trying to stop here. I think forever wars have been forever wars since World War I at least. And that's what we're trying to end. I think that what Trump is doing with Bitcoin, with the subordination of the Federal Reserve and the elimination of income taxes, which I think we're going to get, really is the plank on which you end World War I. You end the war finance model and you replace the war finance model with the energy finance model, which is why the announcement about big tech embracing energy production is so important, because that's the necessary component in order to live in a kinetic world and live in a world where actual power and actual accomplishments and actual power projection matter more than fiat and all of the word thinking that goes along with fiat, right? Fiat literally means government words as money. So the nodes in that network, if you have a Bitcoin worldview and you compare what fiat is actually doing and you compare it to that model, and you realize the nodes, the miners, are the propagandists. It's the ones who spread the words, and so they have to be believed. And if they're not believed, then you get this result. Now, Trump is instituting what I think is bimetallism and what I think is a mixed bag of fiat for consumption and domestic policy but Bitcoin for the energy industry and the parts of the economy that really matter. And so you're bifurcating the economy in order to change it, but that's what's going on. And that's what I'm seeing every single day and what we talk about here every single day. Which is why it's a big deal, right? That yesterday we saw Kraken plug into the Federal Reserve because it takes a choke point away. Now, I worked on this for many years. I was there when this bank license was first granted in the summer of 2020, and I could see right away we were getting completely screwed and dicked around by the Federal Reserve. And I met with them on several occasions, and we were never getting this discount window open. And the point of the discount window was so that they couldn't shut the tap off, and they couldn't use any choke point operations on us. And now we got it. Is it a coincidence that it finally happened the minute we're getting all of these changes in the world? I don't think so. I think this is all what was owed to us 6 years ago at Kraken that we weren't able to get. And now you're finally getting it. And it's a big deal, right? Dave Kaplan saying, many have noted this news today, but few have explained what it means. Having a Fed Reserve master account means that Kraken will have access to the FedWire. This means Kraken no longer has to depend on another bank and can settle transactions and readily access short-term credit from the Fed. It is important as this was one more area that traditional banks were using to be the gatekeepers of finance. You had to go out into the market and get money. This gives you the discounted rate, the rate the commercial banks get overnight. So now they can just arbitrage you because of your cost of capital. Now you're competing in a way that you can actually win. You know, if Michael Saylor starts using Kraken Bank and is able to access prime rates, that's a lot better than having to go to the public debt markets, because they'll never give you prime. They'll give you the spread between what the banks get and what they're able to offer you. So they're always going to take a couple percentage points off of that for themselves to facilitate the money for you. This takes that away. This means that Kraken can bank someone like Michael Saylor, who can run the STRC trade and weaponize credit to buy Bitcoin, because now you're actually getting the prime rate. And that's a big deal, right? Banks furious over Kraken master account, trying to boycott. We thought the fight you stage would be against the government, but it turns out it's against the banksters. It's the banksters who run it. It's not the politicians. It's not Crockett or Talarico or any of these people. It's the banks, right? They're the ones who figured out how to finance power projection and hide it. Nick Badia saying the same thing. I've reflected on this morning's Bitcoin news for a couple of hours. The combination of Kraken getting a Federal Reserve master account and Morgan Stanley filing for a Bitcoin ETF with the Bank of New York Mellon as custodian feels like just another institutional adoption news day. But in reality, it's probably one of those days that changes the game again forever in Bitcoin's favor. The USA is Bitcoin country. And that's why all this change is happening, why all this energy finance story is playing out, why this wind down of the brainwashing, power projection, fake fog of war from the media, top-down psychological manipulation system is falling apart, right? And even Elon Musk getting into the game yesterday. He launched the facilities on X, right? True. William Shatner's out there pushing it, right? True. I think I had two of them. I think I might have lost one of them in the shuffle. We'll get to that later then. There was another story about this stuff that I thought I had. Let me just see where it is. It was something about Elon getting back to his roots in payments. There it is. I don't think people truly understand what's about to happen with X money. This is Elon getting back to his roots, back to X.com, and building what he has always wanted in the first place. One place that runs your entire financial life. So the bankster's in big trouble with these changes. I mean, huge, huge trouble. And this is huge change in infrastructure, huge change in the ability of the war finance machine to continue, a big change in the ability for the propaganda machine to sync up and coexist as a symbiosis creature, the creature from Jekyll Island that came out of this symbiosis of mass media and money and banking and the military industrial complex. And that's why just all these financial flows and being able to track and changing the financial system is so important, because somewhere in this story, right, where we see from MJ Truth Ultra and what we got from Trump's press secretary yesterday, again now talking about the pallets of cash, right? Pallets of cash. Trump yesterday in his meeting with, or 2 days ago in his meeting with the German chancellor, saying, how does he do the pallets of cash, right? This was it. How does he do the pallets of cash? Where do you get pallets of cash, right? This is just what he said just the other day, pallets of cash. Right? Nobody understands where the pallets of cash came from.
The B-2s hit the, and I use the word obliterate because it really was, it was a complete obliteration of their nuclear potential, and that set them back very, very seriously. If we didn't hit within 2 weeks, they would have had a nuclear weapon. If we didn't do the B-2 attack a number of months ago, they would have a nuclear weapon. And when crazy people have nuclear weapons, bad things happen. So we're in very good shape now. I want to let you know that, and we will continue forward. But it's a great display of military strength, and I'm very proud to have...
That was not the video I thought it was. But mentioning pallets, he mentioned the pallets of cash in his meeting with the German chancellor, talked about the pallets of cash. Well, I don't know where the video was. I had it yesterday. But indeed, again, go back to what I think Trump is doing here about changing this system, and why I think, you know, this framework here, right? Paul Joseph Watson saying the dumbest take is that Trump bombed Iran to distract from the Epstein files. Interest in the Epstein files peaked a month ago and stopped immediately when it was a Democrat scam, because people don't want to follow up on the Democrat scams. And so the legacy media is so bought and paid for in this old system that they're not going to look into Epstein stuff, which is why my frame that Trump is actually doing a P.T. Barnum situation here with the Epstein files to make sure there's interest in it, which is why he kept the 9/11 files away. You're going to see the 9/11 files. I'm positive you're going to see the 9/11 files, because demand waned. You've got to keep pulling on the strings to get people interested. And that's why the Obama stuff is coming next. And I believe you're going to see more and more about what a sick and twisted world this actually did become, and why a lot of this stuff is going on. Because, look, if it's true that they were really interested in Epstein file stuff, we would be asking about Plaskett every single day, right? She still sits in Congress. She was texting with Epstein live during these discussions. I think we're all way too calm about all of this here. Jeffrey Epstein secretly texting delegate Stacey Plaskett while being questioned on live TV. This was in 2019. Ro Khanna right next to her, right? Absolutely right next to her. And here, this is the guy leading the Trump investigation, or leading the Epstein investigation, and Trump is hiding something. Scam, a complete and total scam. And one that, frankly, if you fell for, it's not a good sign. Right? It's not a good sign. It's not a good sign. You're not paying attention, because David Sachs, fresh off the announcement, is showing you they're going to bring it all back to Epstein next. It's just a play. It's a show. You're watching a movie, and the movie requires your attention. It requires people to want the answer. That's why Trump uses the kayfabe model in order to provoke interest. Why he did it a year ago with the fake fight that he had with Elon. And what did that end up doing? It got a bunch of people interested in Epstein who were never interested. So here was the fake Elon fight, right? So you push things that way, interest over time, of course. Just a couple months ago, it was a big deal, and now not so much. Nobody cares because it was an Epstein scam. It was a Democrat scam from the beginning. But you've got more stories here that are going to bring it into light, and you're going to see that by changing this world, changing this system. Remember, one of the things that we want to change is that financiers, and if you live in a world based on fiat, it's only a matter of time before the best and the brightest get sucked into that system and start doing all those useless jobs. One of the biggest things Bitcoin can do for humanity is get the high IQs out of financial engineering, get the high IQs out of a lot of these dead-end jobs that don't produce a better world, getting them out of the fake legacy media jobs and getting them into real jobs that matter, getting the people like Reid Hoffman from being wealthy, because all he did, as far as I can tell, was be a fat pedo and blackmail people and involve himself with all of this disgusting infrastructure that was around. And that's why people dislike him so much in Silicon Valley, because, I mean, just look at him. He's grotesque. He's disgusting to look at. And when you think about all of the things that he's accused of doing and that you can suggest that he's doing, right, that he was the main guy introducing Epstein to all of these elites and all of these folks out in this system, you start to see why the system was built that way. And you can really start to see what Bitcoin and changing the system has to offer. So it's not just about whoever's strong. I don't want to live in a world where the strongest person on the block wins. Of course, I still want institutions, and I still want some ability to socialize certain dangers and certain risks. And I think that's all good. That's civilization in some sense. But what I especially want is for the best and brightest to not go into the sludge people jobs anymore and work for this system. And so Reid Hoffman here is just a product of the system. Now, I don't know if he intended to be this person. Probably not. I don't think anyone intends to go down these roads, and he might not even have been aware of what he was doing, in the sense that you can get caught up in these archetypes of hero and villain, and you might not even know. Cognitive dissonance is not something you can diagnose in yourself. I don't think he's necessarily evil. He just ended up in serving a system like this that created incentives where the best and brightest ended up getting attracted to these fields of finance and Silicon Valley power plays and media and all these things. And it created a situation that we got to stop. We have to go back to the old ways, which is why things like this are so amazing to see, right? This farming with NVIDIA. So the exact energy systems that we're using to create these abundant energy that Bitcoin is going to help power, the same chips that Bitcoin really, NVIDIA really did bootstrap their new identity that came after the invention of Bitcoin mining and crypto mining in its early days. That's really what helped NVIDIA go into this successful framework that it finds itself in now, making these specialized high-end chips. It was Bitcoin mining and things like that that got them started along this route, which allowed them to be ahead of the game when AI finally came around. And so now they're creating these new systems for the laser farming. Look at what farmers are going to get empowered with, and now realize that this is why farming is going to be a great job again. Go back to the Federal Reserve, like we were talking about, when they figured out the finance of war, when they figured out all of this stuff, right? When they figured out all of these things that we saw from the Federal Reserve with war finance in World War I, what did it end, right? It created a world, of course, where financial engineers became the highest paid job in the world, which is what attracted the top IQs to that industry and created more problems afterwards. But the best job in the world before World War I was land-owning patrician farmer. That was the best. That was the greatest job in America, being a land-owning patrician farmer. That was the job everyone wanted. Teddy Roosevelt, before he became president, was a cattle rancher in the Dakotas. This was common of many, many wealthy people. What do you think George Washington was? Why do you think George Washington scared the British so much? He was a patrician farmer. That's what made him dangerous. That's what made him uncontrollable, that he had land, he had a citadel, he was a farmer, he had his own resources. It was very difficult to stop a man like that. And we're going to be capable again if we do this American system right and not this British banking fiat system that we've been sucked up into. If we do that right, we're going to make farmers the top paid job in the world again. They're going to have fucking laser beams, man. They're going to, you know what a tedious job farming had become without technology. That's part of what killed it. Now, and especially when it was industrial farming. This isn't industrial farming. This is a human scale. If you can do this, you don't need the industrial scale of farming anymore, and you're going to be able to handle all of these things. That's why you've got RFK here talking about what's needed in America, because it's not just that. It's the consumer mindset that also came out of the World War II framework, right? Americans were brainwashed into being consumers in order to keep the war machine ready to pivot from making washing machines and dishwashers back to tanks if needed. And this was all very deliberate, very cataloged. We know Edward Bernays worked with Eisenhower. It's why Eisenhower warned us all about the military-industrial complex when he left office, probably the last civilian controller of the military that we've had, civilian leader of the military that we had. And so when Eisenhower made these choices, when Eisenhower went and made these compromises with Edward Bernays, it was good intentions, right? Maybe like Reid Hoffman had good intentions when he got started. I know this is the case. Patrick Byrne, for example, in Bitcoin had good intentions when he started doing stuff for Obama. You get sucked into this without realizing what's going on. And so Edward Bernays and Eisenhower made choices, and they were to limit actually the military power. It was to keep the money and the finance in the hands of civilians, and who would just be making cars and who would just be making washing machines and vacuum cleaners. And then the war machine could, and the industrial military complex could absorb the capacity if needed, but they wouldn't be in charge of the money because he thought that was too dangerous. And that's why it was done. And so it's what ended up, and we got the worst of both worlds in the end because we lost the industrial manufacturing capacity anyway, because the financial engineers got sucked into the system to such an extent that they did, that the Cantillon effect and the Triffin dilemma and all of these paradigms started triggering in the 1960s and 70s, which drove manufacturing out anyway. So we were left with the two worst sides of it. We had no industrial capacity, and we were all broken brain consumers waiting for the next top 10 hit on the radio, and waiting for the next big blockbuster movie, and waiting for the next big slop that came down the feed and the trough, and whatever new product came out, we want it, can't wait, right? And so that was a fiction of these last 80 years, and that is what will end. And that's why it's an important thing. When you have farming coming back, we can decentralize the farming, we can decentralize the electrical grid, we can make patrician farmers a great job again, we can make what RFK is talking about here an important facet of American life again. And this is what we lost through letting these bankers and stuff run society for a long time.
Every American can feed themselves cheaper than fast food. One of the challenges that we're facing, and that we're working on all kinds of innovative devices to solve, is that Americans have forgotten how to cook. Well, the convenience of fast food is one of the things that attracts them. And many of them don't have the cutlery, they don't have the pots and pans, they don't have the cutting boards, and they don't know how to shop. And one of the things that we're talking about now at HHS is to use the Commission Corps or other groups within our agency to go out and actually teach people to cook. Every American can feed themselves.
And so that's where I think this is headed. I think it's headed to these frameworks and these systems, and that's why it's important to track these jobs and these different financial flows and the potential for what's coming next. And of course, Bitcoin is at the core of this, because you need to separate money and state at this point, and the state will exist in whatever form it takes after this. But without the money, it has a limited profile that it can acquire, and a limited stature and a limited size. We should have credible public debt from now on. And right now it's not credible. That's what's created all this distortion and all the mental illness that we see out there. That's why Bitcoin is at the center of what's going on. And I see this question from Plastic 02D. Have you watched Professor Zhang on geopolitics? Yeah, he's retarded. He doesn't understand Bitcoin. So whatever his predictive model is, it's very dumb. Do you understand? If you don't understand Bitcoin, what could you possibly understand about the future? Zero. Nothing. This guy lives in Canada, first of all. Are you going to take the advice of someone who still lives in Canada? Canada? He's a university professor in Canada? In Canada? Sorry. I don't think he's that interesting. I don't. I see he gets good numbers, but I mean, he doesn't understand Bitcoin. Go find out what he said about Bitcoin, and you'll see what this guy's all about. And his whole thing about how America's going to get caught in a trap and China's going to take over. Listen, I've been to China recently. They're not winning shit, okay? They're not winning anything. A Chinese guy living in Canada telling you the future, you got to wonder. And why are you still in Canada if you're so smart? Everyone who's smart left Canada. No one's there. Like, well, that's not true. There's still a lot of smart people in Canada. But some people are bound and stuck there, and there's a million reasons why you'd want to still be in Canada. I'm still in Canada, so I shouldn't even say that. I'm in Canada because I think the fallout of Canada and the breakup of Canada offers great opportunities and ones that I intend on absolutely embracing. And but I wouldn't be around saying that America is going to die before Canada. And that's his big prediction, right? That America gets caught up in some kind of financial disaster because of the Strait of Hormuz, and that China is going to move, and then we're in the Chinese era. Again, you cannot make predictions in the world right now if you don't have Bitcoin as part of your worldview. The thing about predictions is this, is that you make them based on your worldview when you make them. And if you're right, it means your worldview was accurate. And so you can happen upon a correct prediction. That's possible. But you don't, that's luck in a certain sense. You don't maintain consistency without Bitcoin in that worldview, because Bitcoin is a part of the future. It's a joke I used to always use on when Ethereum was still, people talked about it. So what I would say is I wrote a science fiction book about the future and about how Bitcoin was a part of it. It's not about Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is part of the incentives. It's part of the worldview of this book set in the future. And Ethereum people would always say at the time, is Ethereum in it? And I say, no, the book's in the future. And then I would wait for them to try to understand what it was that I meant, right? And they would be like, what? I'd say, no, it's in the future. So it can't be about Ethereum. And when they would get it, they'd, no, excuse me. The book's in the future. The book is set in the future. So important that we think about that stuff. And that's why I make predictions on this show all the time. It's the point of making predictions where you can get that context and test your worldview while you're making it. So I make all these in public. And it's, why I think, why I have confidence in my prediction models, because I test them in public regularly. And the Chinese guy, I was probably I knew him before he started going viral about 2 years ago, or last year. He started to go viral about last year, but I had followed him earlier than that. And again, his Bitcoin stuff is just rancid and stupid. And I wrote a book called Bitcoiner's Guide to NPC Management, my number one test. You have no Bitcoin opinion, you're retarded. You have a Bitcoin opinion, but it's governments are going to stop it. It says more about, when I said everything about fears earlier, the French and the Quebec stuff, and Trump calling Starmer a loser, all those subconscious triggers. That's what people do when they criticize Bitcoin. That's why you can't argue with people about Bitcoin. You can't argue your way into orange pilling someone. It's a simple problem with reality that they have. And
They'll usually tell you more about their own failings and their own dreams and their own fears by saying why Bitcoin won't work than they will about anything to do with Bitcoin. And Professor Zhang is one of those guys. Just zero concept. Governments are going to ban it. Imagine believing in a world. Imagine you're predicting the future and you believe in a world where Bitcoin can be banned by governments like the Keir Starmer type of people. No. And it's too late anyway. The virus has been caught in America. And we just simply don't give a fuck what they have to say in England or in any of these shitholes. All of the shitholes can fuck off. We don't care. We simply don't care anymore. I don't even think about these places as having opinions. I just think of them as having so much mental illness from imbibing so much fiat brainwashing that is the opinion. You can't argue with brainwashing. You can't argue with people who have been so saturated in political brainwashing that their worldview is just entirely useless after. And it's getting better for individuals because, again, the institutions that would thwart Americans sucking up the high IQs and having them go to Wall Street, denigrating the simple jobs in the household, cooking, making farming industrial and therefore without dignity and therefore without real hands-on benefits because they didn't make any money, they're poor. It's getting even better, of course, because it's happening in the white-collar jobs and it's happening, importantly, in Hollywood. And so the facilities and the brainwashing capacity is getting limited real quickly. And here's Prof. St. Onge talking about it and why this is such a big opportunity and why this isn't just a little bit of change going on. It's everything.
AI is coming for Hollywood with a recent viral video of Tom Cruise fighting Brad Pitt, setting off alarm bells in Tinseltown that maybe we don't need the celebrities or the rest of them. Meanwhile, Reuters predicts H-1Bs face a, quote, AI job reckoning. The Spectator thinks AI will, quote, kill all the lawyers, metaphorically kill. Will AI keep going till the only jobs are blue collars? Raw numbers since the post-COVID peak, entertainment jobs, including journalists, are down 300,000. Entry-level IT is down 90,000. Lawyers sadly added jobs because regulations went up. So AI is interesting because it's the opposite of the Industrial Revolution, which devalued physical work in favor of white-collar work. It was the ultimate revenge of the nerds. This took journalists and professors from penniless scribblers to masters of the universe. AI, on the other hand, replaces white-collar work while increasing physical work. Since automation raises incomes, higher incomes consume more services, more trades, houses get bigger with swimming pools, and more creators, rich people buy handmade. Now, in theory, robots eventually come for all those service and trades jobs, but that takes decades because you can build one AI for 8 billion people, but you need 5 robots for every McDonald's. Now, it's worth noting AI job replacement has been much slower than predicted. 10 years ago, experts confidently hyperventilated that AI job losses by now would be between 40 million BCG to 75 million McKinsey to 85 million, according to the World Economic Forum. In fact, the World Economic Forum predicted half of all job tasks would be done by AI by now. In fact, you have to squint to see AI in the jobs data. Now, future jobs are being canceled. Amazon recently canceled 600,000 future warehouse jobs, and we're seeing an impact on young hires, especially those who have useless degrees. But we have not lost 75 million jobs. Still, we are seeing these pockets where AI can replace specific workers in Hollywood, H-1Bs, and lawyers. Now, in recent videos, I've talked about where the new jobs will come from. Some will be in new goods and services we have not yet imagined. A decade ago, there was no such thing as an app developer, Uber driver, or YouTuber hi mom. A lot more will be services like caregiving, so nurses, teachers, elder care, and normal people enjoying these services only rich people enjoy today, from personal trainers, pet groomers, personal chefs, and custom landscaping. Consider the 1950s, only the rich had pet groomers and babysitters. They called them nannies back then. Vending machines have not replaced bartenders. YouTube videos have not replaced personal trainers. Most people do not want a robot watching their kids. Finally, for the introverts, these skilled trades, building and maintaining all those second houses, home theaters, and swimming pools. So what's next brought to you by I Trust Capital. For thousands of years, automation creates more jobs than it.
So there you go, another Bitcoiner giving you a framework to understand where the world is headed, all these jobs, all the stuff that can be muted. Yeah, I see it. A Bitcoin citizen, exactly. This should give you a framework here for where I think it's headed and why I think all of this forever war stuff is highly exaggerated. I think it has more to do with American perceptions and the battle for the American mind, the psychological frames we find ourselves in all the time in the United States. Let's take this one down, and I should reappear. There I am. So indeed, you know, the Trump derangement syndrome being used, which is really just a manifestation of a tremendous amount of brainwashing in America, a tremendous amount of projection. Now, Trump is good at it himself. He plays into it, of course, but it's one of the things that is coming to an end as we move through these big changes. But they're coming to jobs. It's coming to economics. It's coming to energy. It's coming to the legacy media and the business models that are in there. So there you go. Let's see what's going on. Yeah. Yeah, there's Hank. Just a second, Hank. I'm just going to read a couple comments. Didn't China outlaw Bitcoin? Gee, that was kind of lame. It didn't work out for them. Learn to cook. Chef approved. We love learning to cook. Indeed. Chef Zero says, don't listen to that dude. He is clueless. Yeah, the Jiang guy. I mean, again, you can test worldview of any of these folks that's why I wrote the book, Bitcoiner's Guide to NPC Management. No Bitcoin worldview, no Bitcoin first contact story, automatic NPC, just automatic. And then if it's any one of these other complaints, none of which are logical or rational, just move into not arguing. It's really just dark magic and hypnosis that they're under, not opinions or anything like that. So there you go. Can hear, am I on my Mac Mini? Can hear all the background. I heard the horn. Yeah, there you go. So there you go. All right. I'm going to bring Hank on now. Hank.
Hey, Nolan, how are you?
I love life, man. How about you?
Always glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. How's the show been this morning? What are y'all talking about?
Well, we did our update on Iran and just what's going on, the amount of missiles and the latest developments with the torpedo strike on one of the Iranian frigates. We talked more about the Strait of Hormuz and the insurance issue. Covered the British weakness when it comes to all this, the dilly-dallying and the international law, all these conversations. What about international law? So we talked about how funny it is. And then went deep into the clear signs that Trump is embracing Bitcoin with all that we saw regulatory-wise in the past couple of days, as well as Trump's convening of all big tech to get the energy stuff financed, that they're going to be energy companies, which is really just a sign that we're rebuilding the American system and not this insurance, banking, British system that explains, really their only move left, which it looks like the insurance company Lloyd's of London was hoping for escalation and economic fallout by canceling the maritime insurance. Imagine you sell someone war insurance and then war breaks out and you're like, oh, actually, no. So most of what's going on with Lloyd's of London, according to what we covered today on the show, is because they were plugged into MI6. They're right next door to each other, kind of, right? They're right related. And when America cut off information to MI6 and the English spies, that's exactly when they cut off the insurance, because they've probably been relying on the intelligence in order to price insurance and price risk for, decades now. And that went away, which is why they did the unprecedented thing of cutting the insurance when they lost the info.
Is that really unprecedented, though? I think the worst people in the world are insurance companies. They're just awful. I've never had a good experience. Ever once.
They're not
no,
great.
Really bad. Well, unfortunately, I don't think we'll be talking about insurance when you join me this morning, but we are going to be talking about what's going on in Iran. First submarine strike in like 80 years, which is crazy. Wild times indeed. So I'll let you finish up with your crew. I know you guys got a few minutes left, but everybody stay tuned. I'll have Nolan on Roxham TV News in a bit.
Are we going to be catching up on the Netflix deal? Because my prediction came true. Paramount did get it.
Dude. I don't think that's in the docket for today, but if we segue over to that for a minute or two, I don't think it would hurt, because that whole thing's been crazy too. And you did predict it. Your prognostications are a little too on brand. It's scaring me.
We got it. There was no way they were going to let Netflix win that. So
yeah, you called it. I'll make sure to give you your flowers, Nolan. I'll let you wrap up. I'll see you in just a bit, buddy. All right. Bye. All
right. Thank you for that, Hank. Thank you for that. Okay, folks, come over to Hank's show if you want to see more. We're going to have fun. Hank, the Spank, We Deserve Titles, Rumble Sound Engineers, or something. I'm going to get these. Rumble quotes back on. Do enjoy the sound of the Caribbean breeze. Thanks, guys. I really think it's not on. Good catch. Good point. That mic shouldn't hear the background much. I actually put the gain up yesterday big time compared to what we've been doing, and I forgot to put it down because when I go on Zoom to go on Hank's show, the gain is much lower and the audio is much lower when I use Zoom. So I mistakenly left it high today. So if the audio sounded higher or that I was picking up so much of the background noise, it's because the gain is 3 times as much as I normally do. But if you didn't like it, I'll readjust it. Gain goes to 11. I don't know what I'm at. I don't really have, there's not like a numbers on it. It's just a round dial. There's 0 numbers on my Motu M2. I don't know what you call that device. Whatever it does, I put my gain way up. So that's probably why you're hearing more of the background noises. Unsure, that was just a motorcycle earlier, a 2-stroke engine. That was not the kites, but they're as loud. But the kite went away, so no problem. All right, folks, I'm going to play the thanks for coming screen after the thanks for coming screen. Sorry, I'm going to play the logo and thanks for coming screen. But I want to tell you, thanks for watching. See you all tomorrow. It'll be Friday. If not, come on over to Hank's show and we'll have more fun over there. All right, everyone. Peace.